Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back down the rabbit hole. I am your host, Monty Hook, and I'm in the villa the villa studio in Bali, and today I'm joined by Amir Zoghi. Amir, how are you?
Monty, how are you, mate?
I'm good, man. Good. Real pleasure to have you on. You're down
Thanks.
there in Sydney, right?
Yeah, mate.
Just working.
I'm in the corner of Sydney in Bondi Beach.
Oh, lovely spot.
Yeah.
So, mate, I've been really excited to bring you on. I love all your content, what you talk about with ego and purpose and love and all this kind of stuff. But I was first introduced to you in 2013, I think it was. I was brought along to your program. It was a live event. It was really powerful. WTF, right? That was the name.
That was it.
What was Wisdom, Truth, and Freedom Experience? Correct.
Yeah, it's people kept saying what the fuck, so I decided to call it what the but it is the wisdom, truth, and freedom experience.
Yeah, and I got a lot out of that, and I think I was really searching at the time. I was launching a new business, the outsourcing business, and was doing really well, but I had this calling, like there was something pulling me, and to learn to cultivate my spirituality or whatever that thing was, and then I was led to your event, and I really resonated with the way that you presented it, because you just seem like, like a dude like me, and you like riding motorbikes and doing all this stuff, and you seem to have had integrated, whatever that spiritual thing was into your life, rather than it being a separation, which I think when we're seeking, whatever that thing is, it seems like it's outside of us. It seems like, that spiritual practice or that thing is separate to us, and we have to learn that. And I feel like it's really interesting, because in 2020, probably a lot of the things that I learned with you in 2013, 14, I was doing some mentoring with you as well. It seems like they're just dropping in now. So thanks.
I did tell you that. If you don't understand what I'm saying right now, it will be stored somewhere in your mind and it'll drop in when it needs to. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think these days you're probably doing the WTF online, and we'll lead people to that. But yeah. So what are you up to these days? What's your focus? I had a quick look on your website and your Instagram, and I've obviously been following with what you're doing. You're doing acrobatic flying. That seems to be something new, and you've got a new young family as well. So yeah, what's changed for you since we first?
Well, mate, since I last saw you, the fast motorbikes wasn't enough anymore. So I now fly fast aircraft, get up to 400 kilometers an hour in my aircraft. It goes. But yeah, look, it's I've had other unfinished business from when I was a child. I've always wanted to be a pilot. So doing my work, it's all about doing what's true for you and doing what you love to do. And I found an unfinished business, which was becoming a pilot. So after I saw you last, I ventured down the road of flight training and becoming a pilot, and then I became an aerobatic pilot, and bought my own aviation business.
That's those same planes that they're using the Red Bull acrobatics, where they're doing loops and flips.
Yeah,
and stuff
aerobatics.
Like basically the crazy shit. You're doing the crazy shit.
The stunt flying, yeah. We take passengers up and show them life upside down, and AGs and all that kind of good stuff.
So how many Gs do you reach in that? Like, what's the?
Well, in the extra 330 LX, which is the Red Bull Air Race kind of stuff that you're talking about, we with two people on board, we do 8 Gs, but otherwise you can do 10 Gs.
Wow. Positive
and negative.
Right. So what's passing out point for the average person?
Look, if I don't brief them and tell them what to do, like squeeze and how to push the blood back in their head, like you pull 5 or 6 Gs long enough, they'll be lights out for sure. Yeah. But we do brief people and we show them what to do, even though we still get sometimes people still pass out because during the squeezing, they take a break to take a breath and go, oh, gone. So it does happen.
Sounds fun, man. I'd love to come up sometime.
Mate, you're definitely welcome to.
So is there some kind of crossover? We'll come back to the work that you do, but is there some crossover to that work in what you do? Like it kind of seems to me like I would be guessing that the thing about flying is you've got to be in the moment. You've got to be super present. There's nothing else but you and what you're doing. Is that why you love it so much? Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a real good question. People always ask me why I love it so much. I mean, I'm all about the freedom, and to have three-dimensional movement in the sky, and all this space and seeing below you, it kind of puts life into perspective. But to answer your question, definitely, it's the freedom. It's the opportunity to just be there, have no other thoughts that is below you. The everyday thinking. There's you have to be completely present. You've got no choice. Sometimes I take clients up to do life coaching up in the aerobatic aircraft, and one of the biggest things they get from it is. I say, well, what did you get from it? They go, I was just experiencing this total presence. And I'm like, yeah, but how did you find the presence? And they were like, and if they're one of my clients, they were like, oh, I just took a deep breath. And I think I just was focusing on my breath. They just say what you think you should say. But I was like, did you really? Did you just take it? Did you really take a breath, or did you just find yourself being present? And they were like, to be honest, it kind of found me. And I was just like, but why? Why did it find you? How did you just find yourself in that moment of presence? And I point out to them, it's because there was something demanding your attention. I put the aircraft upside down. I put in G forces. I put it in a tumble. There's all these forces on your body. And suddenly you don't have time or to be anywhere else outside of what's happening right now. You are completely devoted to this experience. You are completely present. Why? Because something demanded your attention. And that's the thing, that when I talk about doing what you love to do and doing what's true for you, you got to do what's true for you because it demands your attention. And if you can do the things that demand your attention, you find yourself naturally being present.
Yeah, so do you that's awesome. Do you think in the flying experience it's the case that I tend to think that we're born with that capacity to be present, but it just everything, there's so much noise and so much distraction, and I think it's always there, right? And what you're doing with that flying experience and through your events, etc., is you're bringing people back to that experience, back to that moment. And then, like you said, like people are looking for the strategy in that. Like, well, why is this? How did I get to that? But the way I kind of think about it, and you can chime in on this, is that was always there, right? It's just the distractions are no longer there. The noise is no longer there. So how can people take that, that wisdom, I guess, and integrate that in their daily life?
I talk about, it's perfect what you said, that was already there. I talk about this all the time in my programs. Our natural state is a state of presence. Like we are doing things to take ourselves away from the present moment. So we do that in our thinking and where our attention goes. But if you stop doing that, if you stop being busy and buying into your everyday thoughts, you naturally find yourself back into the moment. So it's our natural state. It's who we are. Most people think to themselves, it's a lot of work to become present. But if you become deeply connected with yourself and do more the work on yourself, you start to realize it's actually easier to be present than the work or the effort that goes into making yourself not present. I mean, if you think about it, because what I'll say at first, people go, no, I definitely have to work at being present. But if you think about it, when you're not present, everything becomes effortful. Like there's a workload that goes into the thinking. You feel heavy, you feel congested, right? When you feel present, you feel light, you feel free, you feel spacious in your mind. There's a sense of freedom. I mean, what feels more effortless, when you're present or when you're not present? Obviously, when you're present is the effortless experience. But it's not about what you need to do to be present. It's what you need to undo to fall back into presence.
Yeah, and my experience, and that's why I'm saying a lot of things I think are dropping in for me in 2020, I'm hearing very similar stories. You know, people are now put in circumstances where they're almost forced to evaluate, you know, like what's important and what have I been doing? What the fuck have I been doing all this time? But I've been cultivating, you know, trying to cultivate presence over many years, but it feels like it's dropping in this year more so than ever. But the way I live my life now in Bali is I don't work that much. I spend a lot of time cultivating my health. You know, I'm in the gym. I'm doing ice baths. I'm going surfing as much as possible. And what's really crazy is, and maybe this is just I've reached some kind of level in my business life or something, and I'll get you to tune in on this. But it feels like the work now for me, like the work is surfing. Like the work is doing ice baths. The work is going to the gym. And, you know, the business stuff that I'm doing is maybe a few hours a day. It's the way I explain it is I feel like I have the capacity now to make things move around me instead of me being the one to move. And the way I'm able to tune into that is by all these practices. And I guess in some regard, these are practices which is allowing me to be present. And I certainly have a greater level of presence in the moment throughout the day.
Yeah.
But I guess because I'm not teaching people in the way that you are, and when I try to explain that to people, that seems like a distant, far off kind of thing because they're stuck in the grind, they're stuck in the hustle, and it seems like that's a place to get to. And I guess in some regard, that was always what was in my mind. That was a place to get to. But now that I'm in that space, it's like, well, no, it's not a place to get to. It's just a place to tune into. So how can people tap into that flow, if you like?
Well, the flow all starts from an authentic space. It starts from, and when I say an authentic space, it's a space that is real to you. It's true to you. And when I'm talking about a space, it's a feeling. So when you're doing something that feels true for you, you naturally find yourself falling into that space. Let me give you an example of when you're not in that space. When you're not in that space, it's all about what you can attain in your world, right? I'll say an inward, but that sounds a bit wrong. It's like you're looking in the external world and you're going, what's in it for me? How can I, and it becomes about the grind. It becomes about putting the blood, sweat, and tears because you're after this outcome and results.
It's about the exchange. It's about it's the trade.
Yeah, it's like, what do I need to do to receive that? And your attention is always, what can I get? What can I get? But the thing is, when you're in a state of, let's just call it a mindset that's authentic, or that you're acting or expressing or sharing or moving with what is true for you, it's a different experience. It's you feel something that you want to give or express into this moment, into your reality. So your attention is not what can I gain, your attention is on what do I have to share, what do I have to give. That naturally, when you do that, you find yourself naturally being in the flow. It's a different mindset.
Are there some practices that people can do to cultivate that? I mean, one of my things is every day when I wake up, I don't think about 1,000 things I've got to do. It's like I've got one or two, big things that, is on my agenda. But the first thing that occurs to me when I wake up, and I've cultivated this, is what value can I add today, and to who? Like, and what do I feel? What value do I feel like adding today? And it's crazy. It's crazy because it seems counterintuitive because it's like it's the logical mind will say, no, I've got all this shit to do. And then there's this kind of thought that there's this separation between what's going to work for you logically and what do I feel like doing. And, the ego, the logic will say, they're separate things, right? So what are some practices that people can use?
Well, listen, for me, it's about tuning in to what's already there. It's about tuning into what is real for you. Because when you're focused on or when you're disconnected with what's real for you, you fall into doing things that is real for others. And when I say others, you're looking to do things to attain the approval, the acceptance, the recognition of others. So you're not doing what's real for you. So for me, my practice is always about going, why am I wanting to do this? Why do I want to share this? Why do I want to be presented this way? It's about what's real, what's coming from a deep place, your core feeling that is there to be expressed. Now, I say that's there, and I said before, it's a giving process. It's about what you have to give. The thing is, you're not looking to give because it's good. So I just want to make that clear, because when I say it's about what do you have to give, what do you have to share, people think, well, that's just that's a spiritual answer. That's what it's about. It's about giving and helping people. It's the thing is, when you're coming from that space, you have no other option but to give. Why? Because you have it. There is a substance, there is something that you find in yourself that you want to express into what your outcome and results are. So for someone who's running a company, there is outcomes and results that are important for them. But it's the outcomes and results is an opportunity for you to bring that feeling that you feel within yourself and have the opportunity to express that through your products, for example, through the experiences that you're sharing, rather than looking at, I've got these products, what can I get from people? Because, and the only reason your attention is on what can I get from people, how much money can I get from it? And again, nothing wrong with that. We're in business, we make money, right? But if your attention is on that, the reason your attention is on that is because you're coming from a space of lack. So it's not your authentic self. So you're looking to do things to feel within yourself up. If you're feeling the void, where the other one is you feel full and you're looking to express that fullness into your world.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing there, what kind of rings true for me is I've been driven since I was very young, and it was always driven out of a need, like to fill that void of lack. And I had my first business when I was 8, and I remember very distinctly that myself as a child, I would look around at my friends, and they would have more stuff. I grew up on a boat. I don't know if you remember, but I grew up on a boat in Sydney Harbour, and we grew up on a boat not because we were rich, because we were poor by Australian standards. And as an 8-year-old, all I knew to do was compare myself to other kids. We didn't have a TV, and we didn't have video games, and we didn't have these things. And I was like, I felt desperate. There was this desperation of I need to have those things. Why don't I have those things? And I was angry. I was kind of, and that's what moved me, right? And that lack moved me for a very long time. And I know that's still there. I know there's remnants, and there's layers that I'm constantly pulling off. But it took a very, very long time for me to have the awareness of that, and because it worked for me, right? It worked for me. Like, it got me results in. But again, what you're talking about there is there was no fulfillment in that achievement, right? There was no fulfillment in that. So how do you can be pulled from that place? You can be you can be pushed by that lack, that fear, or you can be pulled by love, right?
Yeah.
How do people tune into that pull for love? How do people source that? Because I think every human has got their own version of what I just described, and then they've also got this purity, this authenticity, as you call it, this love. There's that as well. How do people tune into that more and dissolve the other side?
By tuning out from the external noise, by tuning out from the things that you're doing out of a need, because there's love or there's need, right? To me, there's only love. But when you're disconnected from love, then you are tuning into need. And by need, it means that you're driven by outcomes or results that is going to give you recognition, appreciation, acceptance, approval, which are all forms of love. But those forms of love are love that you receive from form. But the real love that I'm talking about, that is your deepest core substance, whatever you want to call it, the real love or the presence that is already there is the formless. The formless is the energy, right? When we're talking about formless, we're talking about energy. So when you're looking to attain just or you're tuned in from getting recognition, appreciation, acceptance, and approval from other people, then you don't feel that substance that you have. And everyone has it. It's not just some people, right? But how do you tune into that is start tuning out of the others. Now, how do people get to the position of starting to tune? Because it naturally happens. Like it happened for me. It's obviously happened for you. You start to tune out of all the other noises. This feeling inside of you has got to become far more impacting, far more louder than the noises that are coming from outside. The things that you're doing with reason, right? Then you say, well, I do a lot of things with reason. But if you coming from love doesn't have reason. Like love at its essence is in the present moment, and it doesn't have reason. You're doing something because you love to. You're doing something because you have a feeling that you want to share and express. So it's about untuning or removing the noise that is coming back from outside. Now, I understand that's not easy, because you're looking for a practical thing. Like how do I tune that out? Well, this is what you do. If you can't tune it out, you smash your head against the brick wall multiple times. And what I'm giving a metaphor here, because you think to yourself, oh, that outcome or result, if I can just have that, it will make me happy. So what happens is you attain the outcome or result, right? And then you're not happy. And you're like, I'm not fulfilled. That's smashing your head against the wall. You keep butting your head against the wall, right? Until you realize, you know what? That ain't it. That's not what I really wanted. In fact, all that did is make the void bigger. And I started to think, well, I was making, if I can have $6 million in assets, I will feel safe. And now I'm like, yeah, but I need another 12 million to keep that 6 million safe. And the void just becomes bigger and bigger. And you're looking to, what do I need? What do I need to fulfill this void that I'm feeling within myself? So you either headbutt yourself, smash your head against that wall enough times, or you start to tune out from out there and go, what's real?
Was that your story? Because I think in your in your 20s you had very successful events business. Tell us about your journey. Like, what was life like then, and how did you start this tuning out process? And was that the banging the head against the wall? What was?
Yeah, you're not far off there. So for me, how it started is I failed high school. So it all started back then. Failed high school, didn't have any money, didn't have any contacts or anything like that, and was very financially limited. So I decided to then just go out and become an entrepreneur, become a business person. And I was like, I don't need a degree. I don't, fuck that. I'm just going to go out there in the world, and I know I can succeed. So I went and borrowed money, and did all. I mean, and you think to yourself, well, if you didn't have any assets, you were financially poor. How did you borrow money? Well, I convinced my friend's grandmother to put her house on the line and go guarantor for a loan for a business for me. Like, that's when I knew I could sell, right? So that sounds terrible, right? By the way, I did pay that loan off, and my friend's grandmother's house was safe. But I went into making money and becoming successful in business, just like any entrepreneur, how they start. And I had a family member that one day sat me down and said, Amir, like, I can see you're driven to go and make all this money. but it's not going to make you happy. And I was just like, well, I'm not happy right now, so it's definitely going to, make things it's going to help. It's going to make things easier. And then this person in my family just was like, okay, well, go ahead and do that. And my journey for the next 6 or 7 years, I went through, I was on the verge of bankruptcy by the age of 21 twice. I then recovered from that, and then I became, successful in my own lunchbox, if you like, because what's success these days? Everyone's got different measurements of that. But I had a successful promotion company, paid all my loans off, and when, I was busy traveling, had a good lifestyle. And then when I would get home by myself and sit, and it was dark, and I'd be like, something's still missing. Something's not, like I turned my whole life around. I'm sitting here looking out in the Sydney Harbour, got the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge next to me. I was living at the Toaster. I've got this amazing lifestyle. I'm traveling in the front of the plane, in the back of the cars now. Like, I was eating fast food. Now I'm eating fine dining. I'm dressing like everything's changed. Boats, cars, like everything. And I'm like, it's still not enough. It's still, something's missing. And at that point, I realized that the advice that I received, that it won't make you happy, was real and was true for me. And until people get to that point, whether they bang your head, whether that's banging your head, that's your failures, or attaining your success and realizing, I still have this empty feeling. I still feel like there's something missing. I still feel insecure. I feel still, if I'm being honest, there's this part of me that feels unsafe. Until you have that, right, what I'm saying or what we're talking about here sounds true. I mean, sounds plausible. When someone told me, hey, money's not going to make you happy, I knew it was true, but I really needed to bang my head and experience that for myself. And that was a 7-year journey. I'm glad it was only a 7-year journey. But at that point, I realized there's something more. There's something that it's not out there, and it's within me. I need to find this, and then I can do whatever I want to do. So I went on a sabbatical for the next 1 or 2 years. I sold my company, and I would sit in parks and I would ponder, and I would read this book. I would go on a meditation camp. It would be a 10-day silent retreat. I would only last 3 days. So I started, failing those. But that's how it started. It started because I was like, the noise outside has not led me to the peace, to the empowerment that I've been looking for. So now I started to trust the noise within myself, the sounds, the movements that I felt within myself. And I'm still an entrepreneur. I'm still, I still enjoy nice things, nice cars, fast plane. Nothing's changed. But the way how that comes into my life, right? I'm not working like you talked about before. It's not work, right? It's a complete different lifestyle.
Yeah, and my relationship with wanting things has completely changed. Like, I used to have the vision board with, like boat and house and all this kind of stuff. And like, now that's, I don't even, it doesn't even cross my mind. Like, there's something, it'd be nice to own a Tesla. Like, that'd be cool. But I live in Bali.
Yeah.
It's kind of useless. But, there's some things but I don't have a relationship with wanting those things like I used to. And it seems like the more that I have dissolved that need, the more things actually come into my life. But the paradox is I don't need those things anymore. But it comes in even more.
Yeah. But the reason you don't need those things is because those things are not going to add more value with the connection that you have with yourself. It's going to change things. Like I said, everything's a different experience, right? But that's not going to make you feel more of who Monty is. That's not going to make you feel more happier. So Monty or Amir is fulfilled or is happy, right? And you bring your happiness to then go, well, I want that so I can experience my happiness through that.
Yeah.
I want to be in a relationship. Why do you want to be in a relationship? Well, because I have this love and I want to share it. Where the other version is, I want to be in a relationship. Why do you want a relationship? Because I feel so unloved and so lonely. Then if I could be in a relationship, it would make me happy. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a different game. It's taking what's there within you and bringing it out and sharing it versus looking to take what's out there in the world and going, make me feel whole and complete, make me feel loved, make me feel safe, make me feel secure, make me feel rich.
Yeah.
It's a different game.
Yeah. So you call yourself a mindset coach. I think that's slightly undervaluing yourself, but or it's.
What would you call me?
No, I don't know. I think it's just it's incomplete. I think the work that you do with people is very deep, but at the same time, it's profound and it's profound and simple. I think it's well beyond. I mean, there's a lot of people these days calling themselves a mindset coach, which is why I say that. And that's all very strategic. That's yours is almost like undoing the strategy. It's removing the strategy. So I don't know how to articulate that, but there's obviously a lot more profound wisdom and depth to the work that you do with people than just being mindset strategy, right? So I mean, what are some of your habits and your rituals that keep you tuned in? Obviously, meditation is a big part of what you do. Like, is it a daily practice or?
For me, my number one practice is pondering. So pondering is where I give myself a time in space to sit where I have to be nowhere else. And I have this mantra: there is nothing, there's nowhere to be, nothing to do, nothing to attain, nothing to accomplish. And that's how I start. So I'm not sitting there to attain something or get some new wisdom. I'm just sitting there just to be. There's nowhere to be. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to accomplish. There's nothing to attain. And I just sit there. And for me, and that could then get me into a meditation, Monty. I could start with some meditation. But for me, the most important thing is for me just to be there just for the sake of being there. And all the greatest ideas, whether they're in business or they're my content that I share or what I really feel to do, like, again, what's real for me, they come to me majority of the time in those moments where I'm just sitting. I was there this morning. I went to the gym and I go and sit. Sometimes it's for half an hour. Sometimes it's for longer. But for me, I call that my pondering time. And pondering is not thinking. It's not your everyday thinking. It's almost like you're surfing the thoughts rather than having the thoughts.
You're allowing something to come through you.
Yeah, it's a creative thought process. So I lost that for a while, Monty. Once I became a dad, the family life started to draw me away from that because obviously nothing's more important than your family, right? I agree. There's nothing more important than my family, but I started to lose my connection, and I realized, when's the last time I just went and sat there, And I had to have this argument with my wife to go, babe, in the mornings I need to go and be by myself. And she's like, well, who's going to help me with the kids in the morning? I'm just like, and this sounds terrible. I was just like, you're going to be fine, babe. I got your back in the evenings. We'll work it out. But for me, I had to go and do that, even though that was going to upset my wife and upset my family, because if I don't have that connection, I can't bring that into my family. I can't then bring that into my work. I can't then bring that out of me in my everyday, my living. So for me, it all starts with pondering. It's the time that you allocate for yourself to do nothing, but to be, not to go sit there and spin on Instagram, Facebook. I've done that as well. Sometimes I go sit there and then I'm like, what's happening on Instagram, right? And it's like, hey, put that aside.
It's a different thing. Yeah, that's distraction time.
Yeah, but besides that, mate, I love getting up and exercising. Like I have a routine. I do Pilates first thing in the morning, and just go to the gym and just hit the gym. Like I love sweating. Like whatever makes me sweat, whether it's doing an aerobatic flight and pulling G's or just doing a hardcore Pilates session.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I really relate to what you're talking about there with the pondering time. And I think this is difficult for people to give themselves permission for the stillness. And I think this is where people, come from the paradigm of being so busy and needing to be busy to feel like they're accomplishing something or they're adding value to their family or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's difficult for people to give themselves permission, and I know that's been true for me. And I've always been a ponderer, like sitting there just seemingly staring into space. But I know I'm a creator, I'm an ideas person, and I used to beat myself up about it because I'd find myself staring at the wall, and then I'd be like, "Oh shit, you got to get back! You got to get back to work." But I'm sure that I've come to learn that is part of my process, and even having naps, like I get ideas when I have a nap, and it's like I could beat myself up about that, and people do, right? So how do people give themselves permission more to tune into that? Because I actually think that you can have that capacity that I'm talking about to achieve greater things, or tune into what is the bigger thing or your highest purpose, or channel into something that is more meaningful for you if you give yourself permission to do that, right?
Yeah,
so, I mean, I know I'm asking you for strategies, which is the opposite of what we're talking about. But
well, it's making time. Like I just said, that I knew what I had to do when I felt disconnected with myself. I knew that that disconnection just takes you in a darker place as you disconnect further. So it's making this time and space, and deciding that every morning at 6 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whatever it is for you, you allocate that you're just going to go and sit, and whether it's by the water or in a forest or just in your backyard, it's making the time where you just won't be uninterrupted, and you're pondering. If you don't make the time for it, it just won't happen. So that's a strategy right there. It's like, okay, make the time, but give yourself enough time so you're not there going, okay, so what did I get from that? Yeah. Don't look what you can get. No, just look just to be there.
I think it's in the permission of the time, which is where the value comes through you. It's not through what you achieve in the moment. It's actually giving yourself the permission. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, I became a father. I became busy. I became, helping the kids in the morning, and then I realized that, hey, and my wife's not going to like it. We're going to argue, but I still need to do this. I need to go and be by myself. So, it's not a very hard discipline. It's simple. The truth is always simple. We just complicate it by our thinking of it. But it's simple.
Yeah, we find every reason under the sun.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a lot of things going on in the world in 2020. What's your take on a cosmic level? One of the things that's kind of occurred to me, I guess, through this year is, when all this stuff started happening in March, I think it's my observation is that it is magnifying what is there for people, and it is magnifying what is there for humanity. Humanity as a collective is just an expression of what is happening with most of us as individuals, right?
Yeah.
And all the shit that's happening in the world is a reflection of what is happening internally for so many people. And what occurred for me is when all the shit started going down, it's like I was able to tap into something, like I was able to drop into some power somehow. It's like, all right, all this shit's going on around. It's like, I don't know if it's a self-leadership thing or whatever it was, but I was able to drop into something more powerful. And I think these circumstances magnify or amplify or highlight what is already there for people, right?
Yeah.
So what's your observation of what's happening through this year, and what do you think is on the other side for humanity, with all of this, what's going on?
Well, for me, it's an opportunity for transformation, isn't it? We're talking about tuning in before, right? And the reason why we can't tune in is because we're tuned into the external noise. But there's no greater way than to turn the external noise off, right? For some, right? Because sometimes when, what I'm about to explain, it ignites the external noise. But there's no greater way than hitting the wall, as I like to call it, or getting onto your knees. Like, it's like the world is on its knees right now. The pandemic took place. People had to go into isolation. I mean, think about what you do when you're doing the work on yourself. Like, you need to stop doing everything that you're doing. You need to retreat away, and you need to sit in silence, in isolation. Do you know what I mean? Like, again, we're talking about pondering. Pondering happens in isolation, right? So to me, this is an opportunity for people to go within themselves. Why? Because the world outside of them became dark. And for me personally, where I really took the opportunity to go within myself was when my world started to go dark. Everything that I used to do stopped working. Things were crumbling, and I had an opportunity to react to all that and resist all that. And that's why I say sometimes the noise, it ignites the noise for some, but it depends on what path that you're on. If you're being conscious, if you're being aware, you use that to go inwardly. So the world outside of us becomes dark, and what that means is the things that were working no longer work, right? It's frightening, but if you go inwardly, you find that light, right, within yourself, and you realize that the world was bright before, not because the world was bright, it was because you were bringing your light out. So to me, that's the process of becoming conscious. It's about bringing your light out. So the power is no longer outside of you. Your world is bright because of you, not because the world is shining its light on you. So by light, we're talking about power, energy, love, whatever you want to reflect it on. So for me, that's what happened to me when I experienced that in my personal life. But now look at it, it's happening as a collective. It's like it's time for majority to actually go within. Again, not everyone will. Some people will fight outside, react outside, resist what's going on outside. But it's within. So to answer it simply, it's a moment of transformation. I mean, it made no difference. I mean, I'll say it made no difference in my life, but I had two businesses. One was going to shut down. One dropped revenue by 80%, but it didn't make a difference to me because I just know it works out at the end. I know things. They're troughs. They go up and down, right? But if you're in the story, you go up and down with it. But if you move yourself from the story and observe it, you don't go up and down.
Yeah. But are you able to do that like quickly, or are you reacting in the moment like, oh, holy shit, like you're getting affected like everybody else? A lot of people get stuck there. Like that's their whole life. They're just in that constant, reaction, fight or flight kind of mode. Me, it's like, I react, but I think I can pull myself out pretty quickly. What's it like for you?
I don't react.
Right.
So, don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't want to sound like a saint. Like if someone pulls in front of me and I get car rage, right? So I'm like, beep, and give them the finger, I'm like everyone else, right? But when it comes to things that are huge, in my life or in worldly events, I catch myself before I react. When it comes to little things like traffic, I'll be like, fucking traffic, living in Sydney. Okay, so I just want to make that clear, just in case there's anyone out there who's driven with me and they're like, oh no, he's not a saint. So, and I'm not. But when it comes to grand things that are meaningful, things that are on a larger scale for me, I catch myself before I fall down. So, it's sometimes things happen in our life and it feels like the floor disappears, right? And what you want to do is notice yourself floating or flying before you start falling. Because the moment the floor disappears, we feel like, oh shit, and you start falling. If you've bought into the story, if you look down, as they say, when there's someone scared of heights, it's too late, right? You start falling, and when I say it's too late, it's too late to catch yourself, because if you can catch yourself before you fall, you have a conscious decision not to buy into what is happening. And doesn't mean being in denial of what's happening. Everything is happening. I get it. We're in a pandemic, right? But tell me, by freaking out, all right, or by reacting to it, how is that going to serve you? Who's going to get more COVID? A state of mind that is afraid of it, or a state of mind that is not? Do you know what I mean? So that's, to me, it's about catching yourself before you look down. Catch yourself, and by that it means catching yourself before you look into the story and go, what if this? What if this? What if that? Right? And like everyone else, in my story, I've been impacted financially, or my businesses and all that. But it's just like, and am I still here? Am I still eating? Am I still breathing? A lot of my friends, they suffered because, they were at the top of their game, right? And like, this 2020 was going to be this huge year. They're going to go to the next level, right? And that's why they're suffering. It's like, guys, who cares, right? You're alive. You got your kids, your family. Like, it's just, so.
Yeah, and they'll look back in 10 years or 5 years' time and think 2020 was the best thing that ever happened to me. So
yeah.
Yeah, but to have that,
it's a conscious collective thing that's happening right now.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all. People will come out of this and realize, well, my favorite thing that I started to say when the pandemic happened, I started just doing live social media for people that I knew that were in a dark place. Suicide went up, and I thought, well, what can I do? And I was like, well, I'm just going to get on social media every day and just do lives. All right. But one of the things that I kept saying is like, how's all your goals going? How's all all your ambitions? I know you were like 2020, this year was going to be my big year. How the fuck is that going, guys? And people, obviously are like, well, it's not going. It's like, yeah, okay. So why isn't it going? Right. And the fact that it's not going, you start to realize what's really important for you.
Yeah. So
it's when
so instead of being a slave to the goals. Yeah.
Well, you just start to realize, when you take your attention off all that, you start to realize what's really important. Yeah. And what's really important, you already have it. It's underneath your nose. It's at your feet. It's in your breath. Like you can find appreciation right here, right? But most people are looking to find their appreciation or their gratitude in attaining the next goal.
Yeah.
It's like I'd be grateful for if I can just get to the next thing. And I get people having goals, but so many goals are driven to make you feel more safe or make your accomplishments that you've had so far feel safe.
Yeah.
Like it's all about building the cushion to make sure you don't lose that.
Yeah, my number one goal is to transcend the need to have goals. Right, and
that's a good one.
There's things that I want, and there's things that I think would be nice to achieve, and but my relationship with goals is completely different and the crazy thing is it's the more I can cultivate that, the more I achieve my goals, so.
There's things that you achieved that you didn't even know was your goals, but you loved the fact that you achieved it.
Yeah, and when
you know what I mean?
When you're so fixated on that need to achieve the goal, there's no space to allow for something bigger or something better. Something
real, because a lot of our goals is not what we really want. It's what we think we want because it's based on how we're measuring our life against society or against, Tom, Dick, or Harry next door. right? It's just like, well, I think I want that. Well, why do you think you want that? Because Tom's got it and Tom looks happy and everybody loves Tom. So therefore I'm going to go and attain that goal. So the thing is, the problem with goals is that most people's goals are not their goals. And, when I talk about the real, I keep talking about this. The real is love. You tell me, do you find love, or is it that love finds you? That's something that, I'm not looking to answer right here, but it's a question for the viewers, right? Do you find love, or does love find you? So the things that are real, right, always, for me, I said I was going to answer it, but I am. The things that are real always find me. It taps me on my shoulder. Do you think when my kids were born, I decided, I created a strategy of how I'm going to fall in love with them? You don't, there's no strategy. You don't even make that decision. You weren't even involved to participate. Nobody invited you to participate in the decision-making of you falling in love with your children. Why? Because the love was there and it found you. You didn't decide to love your children, right? I'm talking about myself here, and I know many people who have kids will relate to this. You don't decide to love your children, because normally a decision to love your children is, I love them because of this. But to be honest, right, you realized that you love them. And how do you realize you love them? Because it was there. It was pounding in your chest the moment they came to this world, or at their third birthday, or whenever you just realize, oh my God, I love them, right? So when it comes to love, and when it comes to matters of the heart and what's real, you're not even deciding. You think you're deciding, right? But if it's real, it finds you.
Yeah. No, that's really beautiful. And Mirza, the videographer, sitting in here, his wife is pregnant. They're about to have a baby soon, so he's sitting over here smiling.
Cool,
that's
man.
freaking
Cool.
Awesome. Hey, I want to respect your time. Thank you so much for joining me. We could probably talk about this shit.
Wow, we've been gone for that long.
Yeah. Well, when you're in flow and you're talking about what you love. The work that you do with you work predominantly with entrepreneurs, right? That tends to be who you attract. I guess somewhat like I was, people are called into your world because they're seeking some kind of higher purpose, right? Is that generally the theme of how people find you?
Yeah, I have a lot of people who are looking for purpose, but the first place they're looking for purpose is in what they do. And the first thing that I teach them is like, purpose is not in what you do. Purpose is in who you are. When you realize who you are, you become purpose. And by becoming purpose, I don't want to sound too woo-woo, it means you become purposeful. And when you become purposeful, you then give purpose to what you do.
Yeah.
You give meaning to what you do rather than look to get meaning for what you do.
And my perspective on that, and it probably was wisdom that I gathered through you, was when people talk about purpose, it's almost like their relationship with it is like there's this big one thing purpose that they're seeking. And I think the way to, first of all, I think purpose is fleeting. I think it's changing dynamically in every moment. And I think that's my relationship with purpose. Like, I think people can find peace in the fact that if they can realize that purpose is changing all the time, well, they're not going to get so fixated, so desperate to find their purpose. And like you said, I feel like the way to actually tune into that higher purpose, if there is one, is to bring purpose to what you are doing in every moment. So whatever you are working on today, even if it feels like, this isn't my higher purpose, if you bring purpose to that thing, then that is how you can tune into whatever that higher purpose is, rather than just doing that with no purpose and then looking elsewhere, seeking elsewhere, being desperate, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, purpose ultimately is it all comes down to doing the work. People say, you got to do the work. People say that all the time. But what is the work? The work is self-actualization. It's self-realization. You need to realize who you are as the self. right? So self-realization, you will notice that the purpose that you were looking for in the world is there. Just like we were talking about at the beginning, presence is there. Love is there. You will find, I mean, what is purpose? Purpose is love. I mean, when you're feeling love, are you not feeling purposeful? Do you know what I mean?
Well, when you feel really like you're in your purpose, I mean, that feeling could be described as love. Like,
well, it is. You know, so it's. I found this, Monty, when in my life, because I find there's 3 stages of doing what you love. There is finding what you love to do, and if you don't find, sometimes people come up to me and say, "Hey, I don't know what it is I love to do," and I go, "Do you know what you don't love to do?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I know what I don't love to do." I go, write a list of all the things that you don't love to do and start by stopping to do the things that you don't love to do, because sometimes you don't know what you love to do because there's a whole lot of shit of the things that you don't love to do, right? So number 1 is find what you love to do. Great. Okay. There's a little bit of purpose there, but this is, again, getting purpose from what you do, right? Then when you're doing what you love to do, and I got to a place where I was doing what I love to do, and I was just, I was making good money from it. It was a good lifestyle, everything, right? But then I realized I needed to do what I love to do. Why would you need to do what you love to do? Well, because if I stopped doing what I love to do, I would not be myself anymore. I would not find myself. I would feel disconnected. I would feel unhappy. So then I needed to do that. So for me, it's not about using the energy of need. It's about using the energy of love. So I don't know if you know, but that's when I actually stopped speaking for a little while. I actually took a break and went, well, I need to do this, and I don't want to do something that I need to do, right? Even though it's what I love to do, which sounds crazy, right? And that's where I realized purpose at a much deeper level. And I realized that purpose is in my connection with myself. Purpose is in your connection with Monty. Yeah. Which Monty? Monty, the real Monty, the authentic Monty.
So we look for it in the activity, we look for it in the vehicle, we look for it in the tool, but really those things are giving us access to connect to ourselves, right? Yeah, that's really cool. So, I mean, this is a kind of, you mentioned before that the WTF experience is online for free now. Yeah,
yep.
I think
the WTF.
Yeah. Does that mean I can get a refund on what I paid $7 years? I'm joking.
You would have paid a couple grand back then.
I would have, and I'm happy to do so. So for people to be able to get access to that for free, I highly recommend. Because I think we learn these things along the way, and we don't realize actually how critical or how important they are, and then all these things kind of merge together over time. And in just talking to you, just kind of brings me back to some of these lessons, some of the wisdom that I gathered from you, which is obviously now embedded into how I live and how I am now. So thank you, first of all, and I encourage everybody to go check out the WTF. I'll get the link from you, and I'll make sure everybody gets access to it. But I mean, one last question before we close off. But before we do, just want to acknowledge you, for the work that you're doing. I think it, the way that humanity needs to go is in a different direction, and what we're talking about here is, looking inward, removing yourself from the noise and the distraction, and you've been talking about this stuff for a very long time. And it's like all of a sudden, finally in 2020, people start going, oh, yeah, right. Now I get it, right? So, you've been talking about this stuff for a long time. It's very important. I think you are one of the people that has been helping move the needle for people, so that when these things have occurred in 2020, they've got that wisdom, they've got that knowledge for it to drop in for them, right? So it's like you've been planting seeds for people. So I acknowledge you for that, and keep doing what you're doing. It's really important work. I'm not sure that how much it is important. So I acknowledge you for that, man.
Mate, I really appreciate what you said there, because that's exactly what it feels like. Back then I'd be talking about it, and sometimes people won't even know what I'll be saying, but they'll be like, well, don't worry, it'll be there. In 5 years, 10 years, when you need it, there'll be like a seed. It will just sprout when you're ready for it to sprout, and that's exactly how it works. Awesome. Good on you, Monty.
Cool.
Thanks.
No worries. So, look, one last question to close off on. Like, if you had a loudspeaker, or if you had the capacity for, to connect with every human on the planet. Language aside, what would that message be for if you just had one short message for every human on the planet? What would that be?
You are loved. Like, do you know if every human being knew they were loved, right? Not loved by this person or that, you are loved. Or if you want to make it more clearer, you are loved. It will change everything that you are doing. All the goals, some of the purposes that you have, it will change everything, because a lot of the things that we're doing is to attain love. If you knew you had that, it changes everything. You will be willing to bring the real love out into the world.
Yeah. Oh, that's really beautiful. Amir, thank you so much. I'll make sure everybody's got access to check you out. Where can people connect with you? Instagram? What's your preferred platform?
Instagram. My handle is just Amir Zoghi.
Yeah.
And website is also amirzoghi.com. Pretty simple.
You got some pretty cool content. I love all your videos. They're kind of short snippets. You still doing that? What was it called? The daily something?
Truth of the day.
Truth of the day.
No, that's old now. It's all in videos now.
But you kind of are doing truth of the day. The short little videos that you do. I think it's it's one of these things that just helps me kind of check in and tune in and make sure that I bring myself back to present. So I'll make sure everybody's hopefully what we've just done right now, some of these short little videos, I can share it with people. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Cool. Amir, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
And talk to you real soon. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. See you real soon.